Today I'm going to be learning about Norway and in particular Norwegian culture by looking at the experience of this lady who says here, why I left the United States of America for Norway. So yeah, should be looking at maybe the differences between the countries, her reasons for going there in the first place, which with everything that's going on politically in America, you can see why a lot of people are leaving. But interested to know why specifically she chose Norway, what she thinks about it. Let's check out.
By the third time, I had to put my students into a closet because there was someone on campus with a weapon. That's when I knew it was time for me to quit my job and move back to Norway. So the first time I lived in Norway, it was 2014. I really struggled because my immigration was disapproved and I couldn't be with my husband, who is a Norwegian citizen. And I decided, okay, it's probably best because I'm miserable. I don't have a job. I have very little friends. I don't really have money to even go out and grab a coffee with these people, let alone go out and grab lunch or go to the bar like they wanted to do. So I felt like I couldn't create the friendships that I wanted as well. So we decided that in 2015, we would move back to the United States, and we moved to Florida where we had met in the previous years. And then I got him to agree to move to a new city in Florida where I could have my dream job. I mean, this job, I did not hit the snooze button, not once. I was up and I commuted for more than an hour each way to and from work because I actually loved the job that I had. I really loved teaching. It was a struggle in the beginning because I had to learn how to teach the children, which I had never done before, but after a while I started to feel confident and I started building a great relationship with these children. But with all the safety concerns that kept happening and we had to keep going into lockdown, it was weighing on me. Every day I would drive to work thinking, I don't know, is today the last day? Are we gonna be the ones that are on the news next? I'm not really sure. And then it's also really hard when you're a school teacher and you have children that are at an age where they understand what's going on. And they're the ones crying and you're the ones trying to comfort them, but really you're crying inside too. You have to hold it together, and you also start to question how much is too much information that I'm giving these children when I'm not their parent. I don't know how to do this. I also went to a school where at that time they didn't have any procedures of what to do. So I had a closet that was like doubling as my office. So that's where I decided, when it came on the speakers, we are in code red lockdown. I just took that as, okay, lockdown, that means something serious is happening, and I know I'm in the United States. I have a feeling like I know what's going on. And luckily I actually had another teacher with me at the time, and we had taken some things out of the closet and went inside. And that was the first experience. It happened a second time, it happened a third time, and I had other teachers afterwards telling me that they too were concerned, but I had another group of teachers that were saying, it's nothing you can control, it's out of your control, so don't worry about it, just show up to work and do your thing and hope for the best. And I thought, you know what, it is in my control because I am lucky, very, very lucky, that my husband is a Norwegian citizen, and I will move back to Norway and I will find some kind of way to be approved for immigration this time around.
Yeah, just to talk about that, I mean that's quite insane. That is the issue, obviously, for a long time now, many years. We've seen it in America, having these mass shooting incidents in schools. It must be a terrible environment to work for teachers with that hanging over you as a worry. I know that in the UK, even recently, although there's not things like that, they've started doing like drills in case things like that do happen, even for young children, where they have to practice in case something like that happens, how to respond. Like that's such a like huge amount of like anxiety you're putting into children at a young age. And obviously in America it's a valid thing to have to learn because it's a real possibility that these things can happen, which is just a horrible way for children to grow up. Obviously somewhere like Norway, you just don't have to worry about that at all, which is great. Like in Norway, do they have anything like that these days? Is there any drills in schools for children to uh, practice what would happen if that did happen? Like again, like I say, there's no need for it in the UK, but they do practice it. I don't know if there's a need to do that. What's it like in Norway with respect to that? And yeah, it says here for safety. I guess safety is just a given in Norwegian schools. Would you say so?
So my choice to leave the United States was because of safety. But when I got back home, the day that I decided, that's it, this is the third lockdown, I'm so done with this job, even though I wish I could like pack up all of my students because I love them so much. I wish I could just like pack them up and take them to Norway where they would be safe, where they would have free healthcare and dental, and none of them would go hungry, because that was another thing I had to watch all the time, and it just brings me to tears thinking about it. I'm going to try to not cry in this video because I want to get out the information as nicely or as articulate as possible. But it was really sad to see that children would wear two backpacks to school, one in the front and one in the back. And I remember the first time I saw one of these kids wearing two backpacks, I knew how goofy he was, and he was a little bit of a troublemaker. So I said to him, "Where are you going? And whose backpack is that? Did you take someone's backpack? The one on the front there? That's not yours." And he's like, "Yes, it is." And I said, "What? What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, there's diapers in here for my baby brother and food so that my family can eat this weekend." And I felt like such an idiot because I had come from such a privileged background, and I didn't even know how these things worked in this city that I lived in. However, this city, it was unsafe. It was a low income area mixed with some people that had like big beaches, like mansions or houses on the beach. So you had like a big mix of families coming from different incomes. So I remember that hit me too, where I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many of these kids that need help. I don't know, it just breaks my heart because you also get to meet the parents, and they're so kind and so giving, and they still have like hope in their eyes, even though they're working at Walmart at night. Their children have to walk through basically the ghetto to get home from school, and these kids are only like 5 years old, some of them, wearing two backpacks, mind you. And as a teacher, I just had to say like, okay, bye, good luck, I hope you get home all right. See these families struggling. And the reason I decided to leave the States is because I saw myself kind of getting to that point. I didn't have the education, I didn't have the money to keep going. I thought, okay, now that I have like this little bit of chunk of money, I'm gonna get myself back to Norway. Yeah, when I came home.
Yeah, that's like quite sad, man. Like the children have to go through that, and you see, like in the US, obviously it is a first world country in some respects, but things seemingly in other respects are not there. Even though there's a tremendous amount of wealth in the country, it doesn't seem to be being shared fairly. A lot of people struggling, a lot of poverty. And it's something I do again see growing in the UK. Like there's more people going into poverty, having to use food banks. Like, is that a worry in Norway as well? Is there poverty there? Guess there must be some, but is it like such a low level that like you don't have to have that worry, or do you still have that worry? Again, having to like worry about feeding your children just shouldn't be anything anybody needs to worry about. But again, like having good healthcare and education system in Norway should help things. There's not so much of a financial burden on parents in that respect. But yeah, what do you think? Is there any sort of poverty in Norway? How is it managed, if there is?
When I came home to my husband the day that I was deciding, okay, today's the day I have to tell him, like, thank you so much for moving to the city and moving away from Norway just for me, for my dream job. But guess what? I don't want to stay here. I don't want this job anymore. I'm losing my mind. I'm scared for myself, and I'm losing faith in just like everything that's going on in the leaders of the country in general, not just Florida, not just that community that I was a part of where I worked. So I went home to tell him that, and he presented me with a bill. My husband was in a car accident when he was about like 16 years old, something like that. Had to get half of his digestives removed, so he has a lot of issues, and he is disabled. So my husband showed me this bill and he said, I have to get this scan every year, every 3 years, every 5 years, depending on my symptoms, to just check if anything cancerous is inside. This bill for a procedure that I think would last 10 to 20 minutes long, that he will have to continue to get through his whole life. We were billed $10,000 with his health insurance. The health insurance that he is paying for every single month out of his paycheck, mind you, his paycheck was like not even $2,000 a month, maybe a bit more than that. For him, he was a Disney employee because he worked at Disney World. So he had his own health insurance, and mind you, Disney has some of the best insurance. It is one of the best companies to work for in the United States if you need health and dental insurance and a bunch of other things. So with that in mind, all the benefits we had through his company, he still had to pay $10,000. And I'm thinking to myself, where are we getting $10,000 from? Because like $10,000 is my rent. $10,000 is just, for me, it would be two and a half months of my student loan debt that I'm paying off. I can't do that. We can't afford this.
I mean, that's like quite insane. I mean, working for a big company like that who has so much money, you think like if that's the system that maybe they could like help more, but I guess that they've got so many employees that'd be difficult. I guess it's just down to the government. It should have universal healthcare, should have free healthcare, like especially with the amount of money that the US has, the amount they spend on the military, for instance. At least just give the populace some peace of mind that they don't have to worry about this. I mean, that's a crazy amount for the procedure itself, but having to do that repeated and having to pay that every time, and for people who are not earning like so much money, just such a burden. I think like the highest or the biggest reason for bankruptcy in America, if I remember correctly, is healthcare. Insane, man. Like, again, people like us in Europe or Europeans, British, can kind of take it for granted sometimes, like our health service, that we don't have to pay for anything, but should really just always appreciate it and be proud of it. But Americans should really, I mean, the pharmaceutical companies, they'll just have so much power. I guess that's why they just want to keep making money. It's just quite unfair for people like this.
So we were both in agreement that we had to go back to Norway, especially for him being disabled and knowing that this is a lifelong thing that he will have to deal with. I went back and I was disapproved again. I had to pay for a lawyer. Oh gosh, I don't even know how much money I've spent on immigration. It's insane. I'm not saying that every country is like this, but Norway is very difficult for Americans to immigrate to Norway.
Why is that, if you know of any reason? Is it specifically Americans, or is it just anybody? It's just difficult to go there as a foreigner, to move there? Especially when you think, like, for someone who's married to a Norwegian. Actually, I feel like this is relatable to me again, because if I go back to the UK, I live in Malaysia, and I bring my wife and children back, actually there's quite high earning. You have to earn a certain amount, or you have to have so much in savings. I think it's like almost £100,000 in savings, £90,000, just to get a visa for them. Although there's a lot of like unfettered immigration who get other benefits, but it's actually quite hard even for me as a British person to go back there and bring my wife and children who are not British. So maybe it's like a similar thing to this, but yeah, you think it'd be easier for at least spouses to get a visa?
It was very difficult to immigrate to Norway. So I ended up having to go back to the States, because in Norway you have 3 months to stay as an American on a visitor's visa. Then you have to go back to the States for 3 months. I, again, very lucky, I got to go stay with my parents. Felt so sick for so many months. I'd done blood work in Norway, which, by the way, even without being a Norwegian citizen, the blood work and the appointments were like $40 every time I went, which is crazy to me. I didn't even pay taxes at the time. I was just on a visa. So yeah, I went back to the States, and I found out that I was pregnant, and that's, I guess, why, I don't know, the blood work wasn't showing that I was really sick. That was a shock to me, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, again, here I am again. I'm going to figure out a way to be in Norway, be with my husband, who is also the father of my child. Got to the lawyer, and I started basically begging the Norwegian government, like showing them pictures. They wanted to see ultrasound pictures and whatnot, and I did it. I said, sure, here, have it. Can I please come there and at least give birth in Norway? Because I do not want to pay to give birth in the United States. I also know that Norway has a better medical situation going on than in the United States. That was finally when I got to be in Norway. I was approved, and I do not believe it was because I gave birth there. I had to fly over, 7 months pregnant. I had to fly over to Norway, and every procedure I got done was free. Mind you, I still was not approved for immigration. I was approved for immigration 1 month after my son was born, and I went to work. 1 month after I was born, I was like, oh my gosh, finally I can work, I can get some money, I can start thinking about building a future here. And that's when it really hit that I was happy to be in Norway and stay. And I'm not saying that it's easy. Immigrant life is very difficult. I did not have everything that I have when I started. So basically, all in all, I choose to continue to live in Norway, even though I miss my family so dearly. I miss a lot of things about the States. There's great things about the United States, there really are, but it's not worth it. It is not worth it for safety reasons. I do not want to raise my child in Norway. I don't, even myself, before I even had children, wanted to be living in the United States. Second of all, I have universal medical and dental insurance. My son will have that, and his is completely free. And as I am pregnant, everything will be free. Everything will be free unless it's some kind of voluntary thing that I want to do. I went and got the flu shot. You don't need to get the flu shot when you're pregnant, in Norway at least. So I just paid $30. $30! Hi, hello, my one job gives me $70 to about $100 an hour, depending on what I'm doing. Or actually per 45 minutes, not per hour. And then my other job is literally just working at a clothing store, and I'm making enough money to survive. I'm making enough money to survive. In the States, I could not survive. But I'm making enough money that if I really wanted to, I can go get my hair done every 3 months. I can buy some jewelry every once in a while. I can get my nails done. I can do some luxury things on top of just surviving. But the thing is, in the States, you can't even survive working at a grocery store, working as a school teacher. What the heck? People need their groceries. They need people to stock shelves or at least deliver it to them. That blows my mind. A teacher who's basically raising your children when you're not there. They're giving them knowledge. They're giving your children education for their future. Third, I don't know where I was going. I was just gonna say a retail worker. When I was just folding t-shirts and restocking things, I was making enough money to survive. I could put food on the table. Well, that's it for today.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to say is when I watched some videos before about the wealth inequality gap. So obviously Norway is one of the countries, probably could potentially be the country with the lowest inequality between the highest earners and the lowest earners. So I watched things like that before. It is these types of jobs like working in stores and things like that where you can still have a good life, you can still get by, and it's not as much of a struggle maybe as it is in the US, even in the UK, which is, I think, one of the big success stories of Norway. And it's I know there's a lot, rather than just being like that, there's a lot of work that goes into that, a lot of policies that are in place that take brave decisions. It's when I watched that documentary Rich and Equal, and it went into more detail about the policies that allow that to be the case. It's just very well managed in Norway. So, but obviously there's a few different points there. So it's talking about family, safety, health insurance, being pregnant there. There's a few different things, and you can see someone having to move from their home country just to have things that should really be standard human rights, just getting these things, but it's definitely not. And especially in a country like America, not having that, it's just a bit shocking. So cool to see she's like enjoying life in Norway and really appreciating it as well. So tell me what you think about the things she talked about here. Thanks.